Hello and welcome to Conversations with the Voice of Reason. I'm your host, Benjamin Boyce, and today's conversant is Jennifer Kabbany, who is the editor at the College Fix. We came into knowledge of each other's existence back in the halcyon days of my YouTube channel when I was focusing exclusively on the Evergreen State College protests back in 2017, and in the ensuing years we have covered a lot of similar territory. So I'm really glad to have Jennifer on the channel to talk about her 10 years of focusing on college campus culture and how that has been influencing specifically the United States discourse on political matters. She's been doing a lot of very intensive, detailed work on these issues and is developing some databases so people can actually track how certain ideas have been fomenting in the academy and are leaking out across various different media and tech and corporate culture platforms, etc. So without further ado, here is Jennifer Kabbany. You were anti-woke before there was an anti-woke thing going on, like before that hit the mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm anti-woke, but in terms of the College Fix, we expose wokeness.
Yeah. And it's in the hotbed of where it's kind of born and coddled.
Yeah. I like to call it the battleground.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your take on the battleground right now?
As heated as ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're definitely seeing the left continue to demand complete authority over the curriculum, over free speech, over what's allowed to be discussed and what's not. They haven't eased up a bit. And I think that's an important aspect of the left to keep in mind is they're not willing to compromise. They're not going to be like, oh, okay, well, we'll give you this, you give us that. No, it's all or nothing. And we're seeing that continually on campuses.
What do you mean by the left?
The left. I mean, it's an umbrella term.
Yeah.
But because there's a lot of folks on the left, so to speak, who are pro-free speech, pro-reasoned debate, pro-truth in science. So I should clarify that, it's hard to sort of come up with a precise term because there's so many different shades. The Venn diagram overlaps in a lot of different places. But I guess for me, the left are progressives who demand that you adhere to their ideological view of the world and shut up about any of your disagreements. They want equity over equality.
Do you know what equity means?
Do I know what equity means?
I ask people who say that, and everybody's got a different answer.
For me, it's simply put as equal outcomes. Equal outcomes. So okay. We all make the same amount of money. We all have the same abilities. We all same. And I guess the only people that really are in control in their world is the government, which is kind of scary if you think about it because they have such a big beef against law enforcement. So there's a lot of cognitive dissonance, I think, there. But, just again, equal outcomes, as opposed to, equality, which is everybody has the same chance. Everybody can use their aptitudes to advance, to grow, to succeed, to build a life for themselves and their family.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big moral question. How do we help the underserved, or how do we lift up the lower parts of society? Does the right, if we can use an umbrella term, have solutions for that you think are better than the left, just using umbrella terms?
Well, I think first and foremost, capitalism. I mean, capitalism is the only economic system that has ever lifted people out of poverty. It's proven it works. Is it perfect? No, but it's certainly the best option we have. Free enterprise, liberty. I think all of those concepts and ideas, we're looking at America as the best example of how those can create a successful society. Why are people across the globe flocking to America, willing to die to get to America? Because we are, despite what the campus totalitarians would have you believe, the land of opportunity. Now, remember, you can't say America is the land of opportunity on campus. That's a microaggression. But the reality is America is the land of opportunity. It's the best land of opportunity. And we've seen droves and droves of people immigrate here and make a fantastic living for themselves, including my father, who immigrated from the Middle East when he was 18 and had a successful career as an engineer. And, he didn't come to America to be Arab American. He came to be American. He came to pursue excellence and pursue opportunity, and he did. And it's still achievable to this day.
Which Middle East or which locality? Because that's another umbrella term, if you mind me asking.
Absolutely. He was born in Syria, but I think he was mostly raised in Cairo.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Egyptian.
Yeah. So, but I think he is Syrian because he was born in Damascus. But then I think our family, I guess, I don't know much about it, but they moved to Cairo at some point, and then he immigrated from Cairo when he was like 20 or something like that.
Mm-hmm. So to circle back to the land of opportunity and immigrants coming here, and from what I gather, they perceive America as a place where if you work hard, then over time, your family, if the first generation works their butts off, the second generation can get to the next level of a professional grade or maybe some sort of semi-elite status, and then you're established within a few generations. While that is a persistent reality for a long time, what's happening within America is that a lot of our jobs are leaving us. A lot of the opportunities, especially for working class and probably lower working class, manual labor or factory jobs, those are going away, which is creating kind of a unrest on that I guess Trump kind of capitalized on to try to shore up what America can do. What do you think about that? Like the problems of what people call neoliberalism or globalism as kind of a foil to what the left or the right are doing, because that seems like a completely different group of people that are making those decisions.
I'm certainly not an economist, but yeah. I still feel there's plenty of opportunity in America. I mean, I see a lot of communities come and they open nail shops, they open salon shops, they drive taxis. They are landscapers. I mean, we'll always have roles and open opportunity for a variety of different options. And so I don't want to oversimplify it and just say, well, all of the lower, the blue collar or what have you jobs are fleeing America. And so I think there's still plenty of opportunity, and also innovation, entrepreneurship is what creates new jobs, new growth, new ideas. And the left, as I mentioned, I know that's kind of a very vague, broad umbrella term, but I feel like the left so often stifles that entrepreneurship and innovation that allows for the creation of new jobs maybe we haven't even thought of yet, jobs that maybe aren't invented yet, So I think we just need to continue as, for whether you're liberty minded or conservative or right of center or Republican or what have you, to continue to push those positive ideas and examples, entrepreneurship, opportunity, capitalism, equality, growth, creativity. I mean, we have a positive message. We really do. And I think in the end, we can win the war of ideas.
So how did you get into the college fix? How did you, I guess, first become aware of this as a problem that you wanted to report on and expose?
Yeah, so the College Fix is a nonprofit, and it's about 11 years old. It was actually founded by my boss, John J. Miller. And he just saw it as, this is when the internet was sort of exploding, and he wanted a one-stop shop for watchdogs, parents, students, professors, scholars, et cetera, and just everyday folks to have a place where we can find out what's going on those campuses, what's going on in higher education, and not what the mainstream media is reporting or even what the campus newspapers are reporting, but what's really going on. So the College Fix serves as a way to report the news that maybe other outlets ignore. And I mean, we've just seen, as you probably can relate to, because I know your channel has also grown, but there's just such a hunger and a need and a desire to keep tabs on higher education, because what I think people today, now in 2021, truly realize that they might not have realized when the Evergreen State thing broke, is that the hearts and minds of America's future are being won and lost on college campuses. So this was a topic that excited me. And so I got a job as editor back in 2012, and I haven't looked back. I've been there almost 10 years.
Okay. And what is your, I guess, because you guys collect a lot of different stories. So, and you've been doing this for some time, I guess 9 years then? Maybe
me personally, 9 years, and the nonprofit is 11 years old.
Okay. So you have been investigating this and, editing stories on this. What's your general feeling about how colleges have changed over those last 10 years? What was it when you first started? What was your idea of what was going on? And then how has it developed since?
Excellent question. And I have seen a progression. So, back in 2011, 2012, 2013, I mean, we were seeing I Heart Orgasm workshops. Remember when the I Heart Orgasm workshops were like the biggest headline coming out of higher education, and all those sex weeks and everything? Yeah. That was really big, about 8 years ago. And people were like, what are they teaching those kids over there on that darn campus, Yeah. But then, these microaggressions started popping up, right? Like real heavy emphasis on microaggressions starting about 2014, right? And about that same time, we started to see, gender is a social construct. We're going to give you 8 options for gender on your application. Yeah. So all these ideas started festering and started growing. And then in 2015, 2016, campus bias response teams mushroomed. And you might recall we had the big, huge riots at Yale and Mizzou, where progressive protesters realize, hey, if we make enough noise, we can get people fired, get our curriculum in, get some muscle over here. You remember? There was a real sort of awakening on the left. Everybody were putting demands. I demand segregated housing. I demand 10 million for the multicultural center. I demand that X number of faculty of color be hired tomorrow. So we saw racial quotas and money distribution and racial segregation becoming demands. So it just continued to get progressively worse. Meanwhile, the gender craze continued to flourish on campus, where now students were being told to give their pronouns as they introduce themselves. That's a relatively new concept. I mean, introducing your pronouns when you introduce yourself at a meeting, let's say, or freshman orientation. That's still only been going on a few years, but it definitely normalized the gender spectrum narrative. And white privilege seminars were popping up everywhere in this 2016, 17, 2018. Toxic masculinity took off over the last 5 years, where being an alpha male was just the worst. And then underscoring all this, we had the kangaroo courts, we had the campus rape, phenomenon. Yeah. So it was just one thing after another, until we finally saw, after George Floyd in 2020, this last year, the progressive left has just completely taken control of what is allowed to be said on college campuses, and anybody who dares to dissent or advocate for free speech are called racist and white supremacists. And even the concept of free speech is labeled white supremacy now. So it just continues to get more and more extreme, from I Heart Orgasm in 2013 to shut up, you racist, or we're going to kick you out of school in 2021.
What do you think the end game is? Is it Evergreen? Is Evergreen the end game?
Well, I hope not. I mean, from what I understand from Evergreen, and you've done amazing reporting and you're so clever, and I love I think one of the reasons you're so successful, Boyce, is because you're so funny. Like, where do you get all these amazing, clever little quips and sayings? And I love how you're able to sort of encapsulate the craziness with such sarcastic wit. But so that's what I love about you. But the end game is, I think the end game is socialism, to be honest with you. I think the end game is, again, just they want equity across the board. And I think socialism has become like a religion to them in a way, right? And you've had many guests who've talked about this, the kneeling, the chants, these struggle sessions where white women and men are bemoan their evil racist ways, and they apologize and they seek forgiveness, and like a religious experience, you know? So I think the end game is just complete control, an implementation of socialism, a lack of free speech where dissent is not tolerated. And I mean, really, it's like a 1984 dystopian novel come to life.
Yeah, the criticism of, I mean, you don't hear it anymore, but I think probably in 2018, 2019 was the peak of people just saying, oh, that's just crazy kids on campus. That's just crazy. That's just crazy isolated incidents. But it's the entire infrastructure now. It's in every single, it really is in every single institution of higher education. There is a focus more and more on race, and then on a certain understanding of gender that's being pushed through. So do you see the audience or the public opinion growing, the concern of the general public growing about this? Or is it just kind of the same disconnect?
You know, it's funny. I heard you mention or say in passing that the evergreen was like a canary in the coal mine. And now 2021, the canaries are dead. Everybody knows the canaries are dead. So I feel that like we have reached a state in America where parents and young people to a certain extent truly understand what's going on and what's at stake. Yeah. My concern is it almost too much like people are becoming numb? People are becoming numb. And it's funny because I mentioned to my staff recently, like sometimes I feel like our stories, they're so impactful and people are getting canceled and they're being harassed for speaking up against, for just trying to say the truth or just trying to come up with a different theory or argue a different narrative or what have you. Like if you want to argue against 1619 or if you want to argue against gender spectrum or if you want to argue against due process and just the vitriol and the hate. And the labeling and the social media mobs and the attacking, and even from professors and students alike, that it's a battle for folks to be truth tellers on campus. It's a revolutionary act. And so not everybody does it. Meanwhile, the ones that do, they get a ton of media attention. And then are they becoming a little numb? Like, no, this is still a problem. And we need to pay attention and we need to defend these people. And you know what? Look at the legislations. You know, we got things passing for free speech. State lawmakers were passing bills for free speech. They're passing bills against critical race theory. And we can, I don't know if you even want to go down the rabbit hole, whether that's good or bad, because everybody has kind of their opinion on that. But I think now that lawmakers are starting to pass legislation, especially in the red states, you know, it's a national conversation that's being had. But again, the universities are operating like nothing's ever happened. I mean, almost every single university has a DEI statement that calls for racial hiring quotas. And those that are getting hired have to create diversity statements. So if you want tenure or if you even want a job at a diversity, you have to pledge your allegiance to a diversity narrative or prove that you've advanced diversity somehow. So universities are becoming more entrenched with the leftist ideology, and they really are strongholds in this ideological battle.
So you mentioned getting numb. So this is the big question. We can continue, you and I, we have the audience, and it's our duty to a certain extent, especially to continue to report on this stuff. But that's not necessarily a solution. Watching the takeover of the institution and watching it even fall, at least with regard to its standards, that's not necessarily it's not a solution. It's just a descriptive, just trying to show it. Do you have any ideas for a solution? Have you seen any colleges pop up that are taking a stand? Like Chicago did that with that statement, but eventually the free speech statement that the college, the University of Chicago put out, that was eventually bowled over by this DEI stuff, because you can't have free speech and open inquiry and diversity, equity, and inclusion. You have to choose one, like Haidt said. You can have a social justice institution or you can have a truth institution. You can't have both. Have you seen any promising phenomena that are counter to this that are on an institutional level?
Well, there certainly are a variety of options in terms of colleges. You have the conservative colleges like Hillsdale or Grove City College. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of vocational colleges popping up where they're trying to offer a classic liberal arts education, but also vocational training. A lot of that's a focus on STEM. So students can kind of focus on what's important to them, learn a trade or a skill or code, and avoid all the shenanigans. There's still some Christian colleges that are sort of insulated from some of this, not altogether, but, they do a good job for their Christian students that want that education. But my solution, or the solution I always advance when I'm asked this question, is basically that parents need to talk to their kids, teach their kids, and arm their kids with alternative information that they're not going to get in K-12 and they're not going to get in the public school. So let me just give you an example of what that looks like from my perspective. So when my son was young, I would watch PragerU videos with him. I'd watch Hillsdale College videos with him. I'd watch Dinesh D'Souza documentaries with him. I'd ask him, what did you learn at school today? One time he came home and said, I learned about American imperialism. And I said, okay, well, let's talk about what that means, and let's offer a counter argument. One of the things we learned from a Dinesh D'Souza documentary that we didn't know was that Black people in the South pre-Civil War owned slaves. I actually didn't remember learning that in school, and neither did he. And it was an interesting paradigm shift because it just, again, it puts things in perspective a little bit. And it doesn't just make it so black and white, pardon the pun. Mm-hmm. And then, we learned about, or reminded about how Native American tribes warred with each other and also had slaves prior to the white man. So the concept of conquest and imperialism isn't just a white thing. It's a human thing. So these are the kind of concepts and discussions that we could have over the years, not just one time, but over the years, over and over again, so that when and if he heard something from a teacher or a professor, he had a set of facts, a set of data to discern what he was hearing and have arguments against them. Now, if he wants to buy into the notion, that's his choice. But at least I, as a parent, proactively gave him the other side, because they're not getting it right now. So one of my big expressions I like to say is, don't let your kids' teachers be their only teachers. In terms of options for higher education, I started out at a city college, and I took some electives and I tried to find my aptitudes, and that helped, because when I took a journalism elective, it was the easiest A I had ever gotten. And I said, maybe I should do this for a living, and I am now. But the point is like, why would you want to spend $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for your freshman and sophomore year at a 4-year university when you could spend a couple $1,000s at a junior college, maybe experience the real world, get a job, try out some electives, find your aptitudes, and just take time. I think the paradigm of K through 18, like if you don't go straight into a 4-year college right out of your senior year of high school, you're doomed, is a false narrative, and we should argue against that. So I'm a fan of community colleges. Yeah, they're super left, but again, you arm your kids with facts and information so they can counter that. My son's a Marine. He's completing his 4 years in August, and he's going to use a GI Bill to get a criminal justice degree.
Oh.
And, he's 4 years the wiser, so maybe if he'd gone into college at 18, he would have bought into some of this. But after serving 4 years in the military and seeing the world, I think he'll be questioning more and more what his professors say. Yeah. So there's just a lot of options. Or heck, do what Peter Thiel says. Just learn to code. Be an entrepreneur. Create something. Bypass all that crap. And just go straight to living the American dream. So we got to break the paradigm that college is the only way, that a 4 year straight into college is the only way. It's a great way. I don't want to, there's good professors, there's good colleges, there's good education happening out there. It's not all or nothing, but there's options, and there's different ways to approach it.
Well, speaking of the not left, which would be the right if we're just going to be dueling umbrellas, what are some of the problems with the right that you think that they need to work on to be possibly just more attractive to more people, or get a better message out? Like you said, they have a positive opportunity, but what are some of the sticking points that you think that they need to work on?
Okay, the sticking points that the right needs to work on. That's actually a question about the larger debate on the right about should you be more remember that big debate between David French and Sohab Armani? I'm not pronouncing his name right, but he's the editor of the New York Post. And he was all upset about the transgender first grade library readings. And then remember David French was like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, you're making it more of a big deal. So there's this big debate in the right about what do we get really upset about and how do we get really upset about? Because I think it's a legitimate argument, is we don't want to be totalitarians ourselves, right? We don't want, the right doesn't want to be like, well, you can't say that. We don't want to take the tactics of the left where we forbid discussion. But I think, and that's kind of, I think what David French's argument was like, let's just be for free speech, all of it. And it's a good argument. But then Sohrab's response was, they are taking over the institutions, infecting the institutions, brainwashing the young people, indoctrinating the young people, and won't let anything else be said to counter it. And we can't just sit around and let that happen. So that's also the same argument, I think, that with Trump, right? Like, some people loved his aggressive, hardcore fight mentality, and other people were very turned off about it. So you've asked me about kind of a bigger schism in the whole GOP Republican conservative debate. And the truth is, my Venn diagram is a little on both sides, I think they're both right in a way. And I think we got to find ways to engage young people, get to the culture. I think memes have come a long way. I think they've kind of helped young people be cool and hip. Remember, the counterculture now are the conservatives on campus, are the Turning Point USA kids. They're the ones like fighting the man and fighting the power, Mm-hmm. And so it's almost kind of cool and fun and hip and dangerous to be a conservative on campus nowadays, So allow that to continue to grow as they're the fighters for freedom, liberty. I mean, how can you be against freedom and liberty and entrepreneurship and creativity? I mean, these are just all the things.
Well, no, risk.
Sure, risk
and harm.
Yeah, everything.
Freedom means you could fail.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we need to embrace failure. In fact, so many of the successful people I've read about failed numerous times in their journey. Failure is a teacher. Failure is a tool to learn and to grow. Teaches you perseverance. Teaches you determination, makes you wiser. So the right, I don't know if we'll ever come to, an agreement on how best to approach it. There's two camps, but again, if maybe we can find a middle ground, I really like Ron DeSantis's approach to that, because he seems to argue Trump's points without sounding kind of crazy. If we can find people who can articulate the message in a positive, common sense way, mm-hmm. then I think that will help grow the cause.
Somewhat
because
wholesome.
I just think, Yeah, I mean, I mean, you said wholesome, right?
Somewhat wholesome.
Somewhat wholesome, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. He seems like a fighter to me too, but like a fighter in like a stand-up sort of way. All right, maybe wholesome. Top
No,
Gun-ish.
I wasn't talking about DeSantis. I was just talking
Oh,
non-Trump or
oh
not
yeah. No,
Trump.
I know. Like I know that's the thing is like, I mean, I liked Trump, but I didn't like him. And I think so many people are in the same boat, like again, like it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I think we just got to stick to those positive messages of liberty, freedom, opportunity, equality, and just put all our cards in those themes.
One thing in covering this stuff that we both cover, I'm always they always surprise me. It's never a dull moment. What are you no longer surprised when you come across something? Is it kind of getting similar, or are they innovating in their absolute bat-shitty craziness?
Yeah. You know, I one of the rules at the College Fix is that we're not allowed to ever publish or retweet satire because I know it sounds cliche, but it's so true. We surpassed satire before the Babylon Bee was even invented. Okay, I promise you that. But yeah, I mean, I can't even try to remember the last time I was surprised. One thing that was kind of funny, over Memorial Day weekend, they were all up in arms about this noose. It was somewhere, I think, in Connecticut. With this noose. Turns out it was just a standard loop on the bottom of a crane, like a crane that has to lift heavy things has this little loop at the end of a steel rope. It was just a loop at the end of a steel crane, and I'm just like, my God, like.
Wait, did they have a whole protest and everything? They walked out of class and canceled.
This is great. So the school like investigated, and they were taking it so seriously. And this beleaguered looking like vice president of yada yada something something gets on the front of the news cameras and like, well, we've investigated this and we've determined that it's just a standard steel cable loop that hoists heavy things, and we're building this parking lot over here. But nonetheless, we're going to take it down right away because just the idea that this circular object that looks somewhat sort of kind of like a noose has upset and offended people. We're so sorry. We're going to take it down right away because this steel cable cane loop is shaped like a noose. And then even like the local NAACP chapter guy was like, well, I don't care if it looks like a noose and it's shaped like a noose. It's a noose. I mean, this is what we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
So that one was kind of funny to me. And then, there's so many things that have been accused of white supremacy that you can barely keep up. But like showing your work in math class is white supremacy. The Kardashians are white supremacy. Being on time is white supremacy. Oh, black holes are white supremacy. Your science.
The stars, not just a hole in the ground.
Well, the black things that are sucking up the white.
Yeah.
In the universe.
Well, wait, they're the most powerful they're the most powerful object in the universe.
Sure, yeah.
How is that racist?
Your science listeners will love this. So there was a class at Cornell, called the blackness of black holes, like white discourse on black hole. I don't even know. It was the stupidest thing, but Heather McDonald wrote about it in City Journal recently. Essentially, they were reviewing astronomy through a critical race theory lens, and they were trying to compare the blackness of space to what the black discourse in America and the nation and the globe. Yeah. You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah,
I mean, literally.
Word association.
Cannot make this stuff up.
It's so weird. Have you, in these 9 years that you've done this, have you kept tabs on somebody who's gone from the left to the right, somebody who was supremely progressive, who over time you kind of saw them change and not necessarily go to the right, but wake up to this and say, wait, this isn't.
I found students. I've talked to several students over the years who they consider themselves, leftists, Democrats, whatever, but then they go into these colleges as a moderate Democrat, and they're so shocked by the totalitarian, vitriolic stance of some of their leftist peers that they're sort of awakened to like, whoa, like, no, you can still free speech, bro. Like, we can still have this conversation. I remember when I interviewed a Bernie bro at UC Santa Barbara, and he was full blown, believed in Bernie's democratic socialism and was a huge fan and was like leader of the Bernie bro chapter. This was back in 2015 when he was running. But like he tried to host this debate on the campus rape stats, right? Where they allege that 1 in 4 undergrad women are raped, which would actually make it more dangerous than like Detroit, Chicago, what I mean? So he was like, well, let's look at those numbers. And people like protested his talk and shut him down and everything. And he was so shocked by the response to just trying to have a conversation about campus rape stats that he just became like more of a libertarian. He still loved Bernie, but he was like, hey, free speech, guys, like we have to be able to have these discussions. So I've seen students over the years, and I've had conversations where they're just so turned off by the extremeness of some of their peers that they just move more libertarian. They just move more center right because they still understand the importance of being able to have these discussions. Huh.
Okay. So you haven't there's a narrative. Well, I mean, recently I was called alt-right. I'm like an alt-right YouTuber, whatever, because somebody's creating this narrative trying to tie transphobia to the Nazis or something, and like I'm this gateway because I have detransition, whatever. But you throw that out. So there's this this polar of if you're not with us, you're against us. If you're not left, you're wrong. And you're going to be left behind, or we're going to push you out. And the people that get canceled that are on the left could be perceived as all of a sudden they're on the far right. Do you see the left creating what we don't want that calls itself right? Do you see a radicalization of the people that are being castigated by the left or thrown out of the left? Is that where people land when they go out there? Or have you seen that? Are you worried about that? Is it something that we need to worry about and divert people from falling way over there?
Here's the thing, boys. Like I said, I try not to get cynical, but now the left kind of like blew it in the sense that they have everything is racist. So you remember The Incredibles? There was this movie, a cartoon, The Incredibles, and the main character, the main antagonist, wanted everybody to be superheroes because if everybody's special, then nobody's special. And it's the same kind of concept that can be applied to racism, right? If everybody's racist, nobody's racist. It's like, yeah, you called me racist, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going on with like, they took the power out of the word. They took the power out of name calling by calling like everything racist and everything white supremacist. People have been disillusioned to it now. Like now they're like, yeah, you call me a racist, whatever. Back in the day, being called a racist was like mortifying, right? You were like, oh my God, I'm not like, how could you say that? And like, you maybe lose sleep or whatever. Now you're like, you get called it 10 times a day. So it's like, well, whatever,
Yeah, that white fragility has become white resilience because we've just been beat
right?
over.
There's that wit. How do you come up with these clever things? I love them. Tweet that today. But so I'm just like, so yeah, all right, whatever you want to call me, blah, 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 blah. They're going to call you it anyway. There's no point in trying to defend yourself and be like, no, I'm not in here. Let me explain why, because you're going to really listen to me. And once I explain myself in these calmed, reasoned, rational tones using facts and data, you'll take back that name you called me and we're going to be civil and good with each other. No, it doesn't matter what you say or do. They're still going to call you names. So what's the point? I mean, now you're just like, shrug it off and just go on with your life.
Well, yeah, there's that, but I'm wondering, there is an illiberal strain everywhere, left, right, center. Everybody can be illiberal, by which I mean, I want my will to dominate culture. The odd turn, and we're kind of tired of this now, but it used to be the Christian fundamentalist right that was canceling things, canceling albums. And now it's this hegemonic left that's canceling things or controlling discourse. So when we're talking about the right, when we're talking to alternatives to the left, there's still the possibility, and you mentioned this earlier, of illiberal tendencies coming to the fray. How are those being regulated? Do you think that the right is not just giving lip service to free speech, but actually, no, we really believe in this. This is actually more necessary in order to be productive and in order to be entrepreneurial? Do you think that they are stable enough? And I'm not talking, 'cause I'm not questioning you myself. I'm just, perhaps there's somebody on the left that's, thinking I'm talking to somebody on the alt-right, or that this is a gateway thing. Like, are there checks and balances on the right to diminish the illiberal tendency of people who end up on the right?
Well, I can give you examples from what I know and I follow. And here's an example. But like, there's a group called Young Americans for Freedom. It's a group of conservative students on campus. And when any of their speakers or any students at all go alt-right, maybe espouse an extreme view, they'll disengage, reject, make a statement saying this is not what we believe and this is not what we stand for. A perfect example of that was about 2 years ago, or maybe a little less. Michelle Malkin was appearing on with Nick Fuentes, and basically took her off their speaking tour and just said, hey, look, we don't want anything to do with extreme white nationalism as it's truly known, right? So I think there is checks and balances. I think when there's a real accusation of concern, the right will address it. I think reasonable rights will address it. And conservatives who want to, at the end of the day, still maintain that the high road, the freedom, the liberty, the entrepreneurial, equality spirit. We're like, look, we really want to make sure you understand that we're not that. So if there's a legitimate accusation, I think it'll be addressed. The problem is a lot of, again, like I said, the accusations are like 20, 30, 40 times a day, and they're so illegitimate. One thing I wanted to say, though, that concerns me is the problem is like students or folks like the SLFP or whatever, the Southern Poverty Law Center folks, and then Amazon or Facebook will use their list to determine what's alt-right. Yeah. But on their list, alt-right is literally everything. Yeah. And then some, right? So everybody that doesn't agree with them is alt-right, basically. Yeah. So that's where the problem comes, where you use extreme leftist groups to determine what's alt-right. And then what's censored is based on their opinion. That's when we get into problems. So you've had pretty reasonable groups, I think, like Focus on the Family or just some other, mainstream Christian Alliance Defending Freedom. They're the conservative law firm that files lawsuits on behalf of folks. They were deemed alt-right, and then they couldn't fundraise, or I think PayPal kicked one of them off. The point is, it kind of circles back to that big tech thing. It's a problem. It's a huge problem. Yeah. And conservatives out there, Peter Thiel, if you're listening, build data centers, please. Like Elon Musk, build data centers, because sooner or later, they're going to kick us off the internet. I'm telling you. This is my prediction. What is it? It's July 8th, 2021. You heard it here first, folks.
11 a.m.
It's already happening.
Pacific time. So do you guys think in terms of like plan of like where are you going to go? Or is there like a series coming up? Is there a deep dive expose? Do you guys think thematically? What's on the horizon for the conference?
So we're always looking for creative ways to do some investigative reporting. A couple years ago, we used Freedom of Information Act requests to gather all of the bias reports from various public universities that had launched these bias reporting systems. And it was just one ridiculous headline after another. Like, people would turn people in for looking at them funny. One guy got turned in for watching a Ben Shapiro video. Seriously, I can't make this up. I think, one economics professor got turned in for assigning too many white authors like Adam Smith, and so it was never ending entertainment in a way. I mean, we shouldn't really laugh at it, because this is how the left's snowflake mentality works, where every little grievance is like the end of their life. But so we used the Freedom of Information Act to expose how kind of ridiculous these bias response, they become tattletale systems, and we've got the receipts. And then more recently, what we've been doing is putting a heavy emphasis on exposing hate crimes as hoaxes. So a university will say, this was a hate crime, there was some random whatever. And then like 2-3 weeks later, we'll go back, we'll ask the police, did you find a culprit? Can we see the police report? And then what we're finding in these police reports are, while the university won't admit that it was a student of color behind these incidents, we then have the police report to prove, yes, it was a student of color. So we've actually exposed a lot of hate crimes as hoaxes by just circling back. Like maybe I'll put a mark on my calendar, like remind me to go see if that hate crime was ever complete investigation completed. And sure enough, 9 times out of 10, it turns out to be a hoax, or there just wasn't enough information. So we've been doing that lately. And then we're also building a campus culture database so we can track everything that's been canceled or even attempted cancels over the years. And that's important, not just to keep track of just the enormity of the cancel culture situation, but also like the art we've lost, the paintings we've lost. There's a lot of statues and just artwork that have been shelved or shuttered or removed, and we want to at least chronicle, some of those things in addition to just, professors being shut down or student groups being canceled. So we hope to unveil that in the coming months as well.
Do you think that there'll be just this huge encyclopedia of incidents from the 2010s to the 2030s? Are you going to assemble everything into this huge? Yeah, just this huge.
That's literally what we're creating. Yeah.
With glossy pictures and stuff?
No, but you could ideally you'll be able to search by like genre, like was it like a student comment, a professor comment, like a grad disinvitation, a painting, a restaurant. Restaurants are too. Yeah, you would be surprised how many restaurants are microaggressions, especially
like
Chick-fil-A. Yeah. Like back in the day, it was Chick-fil-A all day. Wait, it was Chick-fil-A.
If a student shows up with the Chick-fil-A lunch, then they're going to be called a bias. They're going to get.
Oh, they'll probably be reported to the bias response team. But at a minimum, the students wanted the Chick-fil-A's off of the quad.
Oh yeah.
And then also back in the day, it was Taco Tuesday was a big no-no. Taco Tuesdays were racist and cultural appropriation. Oh, that's one of the things that was huge in the 2014, 2015 era. Cultural appropriation. You don't hear as much as that now until it comes to Halloween. The Greek life kids throw a party that, I don't even know how they can come up with themes at this point. Like, seriously, what Greek life party theme is even acceptable at this point? I don't know. So, we're going to track all of that, and you can, hopefully sort by genre and college fix articles, as well as other groups like that have collected this data, like FIRE and the National Association of Scholars. So we're really hoping to really make it a one-stop database so that at least we can just keep track of the chaos, because that's what I was telling my staff recently, is sometimes I feel like we're shouting into the wind. Like, there's just so much. It's just the left is, man, give them credit for one thing. They are relentless. They are relentless. Like, it's just, they already get one victory, they're on to the next 3 victories. Like, it just never ends. I mean, I think that's one thing that the right needs to get better at, is fighting these battles a little, and making sure that like we don't see, like, that's the problem. Like, I mentioned to you back in 2013, 2014, we were the canary in the coal mine on the transgender thing, because students were being told in freshman orientation, gender studies classes, biology, that gender is a choice, it's a spectrum. And nobody was like saying, hey, wait a minute, make sure you just say, well, there's still XX and XY chromosomes, and there's still, am I allowed to say this, penises and vaginas, and there's still, males' hearts are larger and their bones are larger, and let's just make sure that we're still reminding people that there's biological factors here. None of that conversation was taking place. And then didn't it feel like, boom, within a blink of an eye, now you couldn't, you're a X, Y, and Z if you even say that, well, you're still a biological male. So, I mean, the point is like, if you don't pay attention to the culture wars on campus, it'll be in the culture before you know it. So we need to pay more attention to higher education, because that's where it starts. And then, all these
Yeah.
people that are seniors in college now they're working at Google and they're working at the New York Times and they're working at all these things, and then they set the agenda, they set the narrative.
Yeah.
Nobody stopped them in college, and now nobody's going to stop them in the real world either, because they're, these young little whippersnappers are over there in Silicon Valley deciding. Ask James Danmore, right? Like, so.
Yeah. Is there going to be are they going to eventually just get all the things, or is there going to be constant evolution of their agenda?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I know, like, it's hard to predict what's next. Like, what is next?
Is there something that you see that, like, oh, this is going to be the next thing? This is a pattern.
Thing? Ooh, I know, that's a tough one. Ooh, you're putting me on the spot. What's the next thing? Gosh, I'm trying to think.
Hints and rumbles of.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm trying to.
I mean, there's race and there's gender. Is there a third thing?
Yeah, is there a third?
Other than just existing
really
itself?
Another big ideological debate is the capitalism versus socialism debate. That's a huge one that we need to pay attention to, or else, I don't know. I don't want to end up like Venezuela. So that's a big one for young people too. Income inequality. How do we address income inequality? Reparations. Yeah, there we go. Reparations. More and more colleges, slowly but surely, are creating these reparations funds, right? So like Georgetown, has this fund to benefit the descendants of slaves who were sold in 18 something something. And then a lot of the seminaries are starting this. But mark my words, I think you're going to see more and more reparations for slavery. And you've seen some cities doing it, and you're seeing some colleges do it, but it'll probably grow, because I've heard a lot of the Ibram Kendis of the world saying that's what they're owed and that's what they deserve.
Yeah. I think there might be a way to do some sort of financial remuneration, but I'm almost at this point, I'm almost willing to, pay a certain percentage of my taxes to have that happen, rather than having that moral.
They'll never be satisfied.
Exactly.
It'll never end.
Can you pay them off so they can stop?
No, you cannot pay them. Do you know that first of all, we wrote an article on a Ivy League professor who put the price tag at reparations, and I'm doing this by memory, but I think it was at $2 billion. But that's just a start. No, Ben, you cannot just be like, here, we'll give you money, will you go away? It's not going to work. It's not how it works. Besides, what about, do I owe money? I just told you my dad immigrated to America in 1950, whatever.
Yeah.
And my mom's side of the family came from France in 1900. So I was never do I owe money? Like, the questions are endless and boundless about how do you pay, who owes, who gets, like, it's just it's such a can of worms. And by the way, no, the answer is no, Ben. You can't just pay a certain amount of money and then they'll be happy and satisfied. It never works. I'm telling you, it never ends. It's more, it's more, it's more, it's more, it's more. We just got to draw a line. Enough.
So drawing a line, I was going to ask, well, what do we do? So you just draw a line. And
you just say no, you don't get reparations. Okay. No. This is America. It's a land of opportunity. Do you want to know what's interesting? And this is another thing I didn't know, but Stephen Moore sent this out. He's the economist that's really smart and is a conservative. Nigerians from Africa are like among the top 2 wealthiest immigrant populations in America right now. Nigerians from Africa have an average medium income that's higher than whites, according to this stat. I don't have it in front of me, but something along those lines. So, like, how are Nigerians from Africa immigrating to America and doing better than the average white in household income if America is so racist and systemically racist?
Well, the African descendant of slaves have generational trauma. That's one of the.
Oh, is that it? Okay. I have trauma being called names in high school. Do I get reparations? I was bullied. Where's my reparation? I came from was a latchkey kid. My mom and dad were divorced, and she was off working. That's what I hate about that, because it's like everybody has trials and tribulations in their life. It doesn't matter your skin color. Everybody's faced adversity, and there's plenty of poor white people too. But one of the most famous college fix posts of the last 10 years was a post called "Meet the Poster Child for White Privilege, Then Have Your Mind Blown." This thing was read millions and millions of times over, and it was by a kid at Princeton, Tal Fortgang, who, by all appearances, would look like the poster child for white privilege. He's white, he's at the Ivy League school. But then he talked about and like everywhere he went, the kids were telling him to check his privilege. And he's like, check my privilege. My grandparents escaped Auschwitz. They came to America with the clothes on their backs. They built, they built a business from the ground up. They had discrimination for being Jewish. Like, they faced discrimination. They faced a Holocaust. They faced genocide. They faced poverty. They built themselves up. Stop telling me to check my privilege. The point of the story is that everybody has faced adversity. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. And what Ben Carson recently said about critical race theory is it's how you view the world. If you view the world that you're a victim, you're oppressed, that's going to sink in to your brain. And he's a neurosurgeon. He should know. The answer to this is to build people up, give them positive, tell them you can do it. Like, work hard. Like, oh, of course, work hard is a microaggression too nowadays, but it's white supremacy also, I think, the last time I checked. But, again, just those American ideals of rugged individualism and, running the race and fighting for your family and just carving out that piece of American dream. It's still possible. Ask the Nigerians who are coming here in droves and making a lot of money doing, I'm not exactly sure what, but according to the median family income, they're doing quite well.
Well, they work hard.
Yeah, they do. Thank you. Working hard. And again, working hard is a microaggression and white supremacy, according to leftist scholars. So,
if you can convince a generation that they deserve things, then they're going to treat the government as their mama and papa and then just obey it's not going to work. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to do it. We'll see how Biden's America deals with the skyrocketing crime rates in Democratic cities, other than ignore them
or blame states that have laxer. That's what they do. Lori Lightfoot was like, oh, they're bringing in the guns from Indiana. Anyways, yeah, that's troubling. But I have an idea that will never be implemented, but is one solution.
Oh,
yes, it will never be implemented though. But it has to do with back in the 50s or 60s when they started giving welfare to unwed mothers, right? So it incentivized having children out of wedlock, right? Yeah. So if you are poor and married, you don't qualify for federal aid. But if you're poor and unmarried, you do qualify for federal aid. So that's created, I think, a generation upon generation of families of all races who are having babies out of wedlock and aren't incentivized to create a family structure and a strong stability. And don't blame me for the facts and the data, but all the facts and the data show that that young people from single parent homes statistically are more likely to end up in jail or have other adverse effects from not coming from a stable 2-parent home. And this isn't a Christian thing or a conservative thing or anything. This is what the facts show thing. So don't blame me for being the messenger, but I'm just saying, like, 2-parent homes are where the stability occurs, right? So the government needs to stop incentivizing single motherhood. I think I would rather have the money go to 2-parent homes that can provide a stable family or whatever. Of course, the argument is, you're fundamentalist, traditionalist. But even if you take out the whole conservative aspect and just look at the data and stats, it does show that is a positive influence in young people's lives And so take with that what you will, but that's one of my ideas.
Well, I mean, with this generation growing up with the internet and Tinder.
Oh, I know, it's too late.
Even the question of even having a stable relationship has nothing to do with the government anymore. It's just people's attention span can't encapsulate living with somebody for more than 3 months, let alone 30 years. So we'll see. I mean, not to throw a wrench in that solution.
No, I know. I mean, it's pie in the sky. It'll never happen. But I've just been like, a lot of times when you hear people talk about, incarceration rates and and talk about fatherless homes, and whether it's correlation or causation, whatever, but it's true. Then how do we address that? Well, maybe you stop incentivizing, children out of wedlock. I don't know, but again, it'll never happen. And you're right, boy. Nowadays, I'm so glad, by the way, that I did not come of age in the time of Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff, because that would have been the kids nowadays. I feel sorry for them, actually, because it's a tough time. Every little mistake is going to be dragged out from like when you were 16 years old and you said something stupid and you totally regret and you were so naive at the time. And now you're 34 and you're trying to get a job and there's a record of it. And it's a tough world, this technology.
Do you have a book out or in the works? And if not, why not? And when?
So remember earlier I was talking about my big mantra, which is don't let your kids' teachers be their only teachers. Yeah. So that's my book in progress that I'm working on. Is trying to
a resource for parents.
Yeah, like a resource for parents. Like what would you say against arguments for socialism? What would you say against arguments against free speech or the First Amendment, or how do you counteract those arguments so that when they get to high school and even middle school and college and they hear this professor's claptrap, they have, again, the data and the facts to at least have the other side, because the professors only give one side. That's one thing I hear time and time again from young people. They only get one side. Not all the professors, but most. They have a desire to indoctrinate rather than teach. So, I want parents to have those resources of what should you tell your kids, the facts and data, so that when they go to these campuses and they learn all this stuff, they have the other side of the argument, so they don't fall for it.
How to survive Thanksgiving dinner after the freshman returns from campus.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, like I said, don't send them straight away. Give them a couple of years in the real world. Don't put yourself $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in debt for the freshman year when they're taking general education classes they can get at the local city college, and meanwhile maybe get a job and just grow up a little.
Yeah, or even learn things online while they figure out some skill with their hands.
In fact, I posted a question on to our Facebook groups. What can you learn at a university that you can't learn for free on YouTube or other online sources? And the vast majority of responses was, social interaction. So basically you're okay. Or nursing was another great response. Nursing and engineering. But by and large, in general, all that knowledge is free now. It's online. It's at your fingertips. So, if you want to be a parent sending your kid to college, you better admit that you're paying for them to go to keggers for 4 years. I mean, let's talk about it, right? So,
rather than alcohol poisoning, they're drinking too much Kool-Aid. That's the problem with kids these days.
Yeah, exactly, both. But a lot of Kool-Aid right now, absolutely.
Well, Jennifer, you are a very industrious individual. You're doing great work. You've boosted me in my little corner of the internet several times, and I thank you for that. I'll link people to your social media. Where are you most active for people to interact with your brain nuggets?
So I post a lot on Twitter, and that's where that's where the Jennifer Kabbany comes out. Like I save Instagram and to a certain extent Facebook for just family stuff or keep an eye on things. But Twitter is where I kind of let loose a little bit, for better or for worse. Yeah. One piece of advice is I always give young people is remember the internet's forever. I almost was like, ooh, should I delete all my old tweets? But then I was like, nah, I think I stand behind everything I've tweeted so far in my lifetime. And like you had that great thing, Boyce, your apology for trying to be canceled, and you're like, I apologize for nothing. This is stupid. The end. That's what would be my response. Like if they did try to come after me, I'd be like, I don't care what you say. Goodbye. Go away.
Yeah,
I'm not apologizing. So find my little musings on Twitter. And then again, I mean, the College Fix has social media accounts as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so these databases that you're building right now, are they available?
The one database, yeah.
Okay, so one database. What's it called? Is there a fancy name or even an acronym?
No, it's the working title is the Campus Cancel Culture Database. Because keep in mind, we're just focusing on higher education. We're not focusing on all the entire scope of cancel culture that's happened in Hollywood and other places. We're just focused on the higher education.
Mm-hmm,
And last I checked, we had about 1,400 entries. We're still building it. So, but when it comes out,
is it live? Okay, so it's not.
No. We're still building it. It's going to be a fun little fall party that will release to the masses. Yeah. So.
Oh, cool. Okay, so that's something for people to look forward to then.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for joining me, Jennifer.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. I've wanted to do this for so long.
I know, we finally got around to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I will continue to listen to all of your impressive interviews. You're like a good interviewer. You bring out so much out of people.
Huh. Well, I wonder what we brought out of you today.
I know. I think I did a good job. I don't think I said anything too crazy. So, hopefully
I stumbled towards a question a couple times, but no, we're not in trouble.
Of course, I started to feel like I was contagious when we talked about COVID. I have natural immunity. Are you allowed to say that? I
don't know. YouTube's really touchy. At least you didn't take ivermectin, so you're okay.
Oh, geez, yeah. So I don't think I'll be censored for that. At least not yet.
Well, you don't know. You don't know.
Eventually they will. So prepare yourself, guys.
Here it comes. Congratulations for reaching the end of the discussion. If you enjoyed it, do be sure to leave a review or a comment or a thumbs up or whatever you need to do to show that glorious algorithm that this is some good stuff. And do be sure to go and check that back catalog, as it is brimming full of fantastic conversations. Links to provide monetary support are down there in the description as well. Have a good night.